And I tell you, on behalf of myself and my client, I'd like to thank the Librarian Association for having us here. This is the first time Mr. Youssef is actually speaking in a public forum. He has done a couple of media interviews, but he's never really answered the public's questions. I thought this was the appropriate place to do it, given the dedication of the Librarian Association to freedom of speech. For him to come here and talk to you and release this information, it's embarrassing to his employer. I mean, that is extraordinary. But I think that is an indication of how extraordinary the problem is. You can't understand the frustration when you have a person who's fluent in Arabic, who can see and understand threats, and people come into his office, order him to conduct searches that he knows are ludicrous. And he says, this can't be a real terrorist threat. It makes no sense. You are ordered to do it. I want every person on it, and snap to it or you're fired, because you're that Youssef guy.
You know, I was thinking this morning, just sort of reflecting a little bit, and I'm going back a little bit to 20-some years ago. 1986, I was in a way recruited by the Bureau as the first FBI agent at a fluency level of 4 in Arabic of Egyptian background. And to be honest with you, up until that day, I never thought in a million years that the FBI, tall, blonde, blue-eyed, slinging agent with a badge, would look for someone like me. I was honored. I still am. I love the FBI. So to take it to today, or 2005, when I moved into the Communications Analysis Unit, which is a unit that deals with telephone analysis bureau-wide of all our targets, specifically for counterterrorism subjects. And of course, our primary target would be Al-Qaeda and all the other terrorist groups, but Al-Qaeda is our #1 target. So as I began to immerse myself in the unit, I realized that there were
Yes, 1 second. And just so you understand, although he can answer questions, the FBI was quite clear that he can be disciplined as a result of his answers.
the National Security Letter Authority prior to 9/11, prior to the Patriot Act, had to be signed and authorized by someone at FBI headquarters or in Washington, D.C. It was not disseminated to field offices. After the Patriot Act, the NSL was now authorized, until today, by the special agent in charge. Based on the fact that an agent would come to me and say, we need this because we need to look at this guy's records, or this gal's records, I would sign it. Well, you can imagine what sort of abuse would happen as a result of that.
If the person signing the national security letter has no real basic understanding of operation of terrorism, Middle East, no expertise, no training, no language, no anything, what gives them the qualification for signing warrantless searches on thousands of Americans? Instead, they were relying on a very narrow exception known as exigent circumstances, where they need nothing. Nothing. Phone call, we want it, it's an emergency, give it to us. And this was happening in hundreds of cases. Mr. Youssef went to the Office of General Counsel and said, what does this mean? I need guidance. Office of General Counsel gave him direction on what an exigent circumstance is, which essentially was if there's a strong need for it, or, we need it immediately, promptly, an emergency. What we now know is the definition provided by FBI Office of General Counsel to their unit responsible for national security letters was a false definition. It was not truthful, because exigent circumstances required life-threatening, imminent terrorist activity. And you can understand that if you're a member of Congress or trying to be reasonable. If the terrorists are boarding the plane, you may have to do something very quickly. It's exigent. But if there's time to attempt to protect due process, you should do it, because we do have a U.S. Constitution that does have certain protections for privacy.
In your personal opinion, do the majority of agents feel conflicted but powerless, or do they feel these limitations are justified?
The Bureau is operated by great agents who want to do the right thing. However, what could conflict that, even though in their own minds they want to do the right thing, is the policies that come down from the top. Just to give an example of, I think the Abu Ghraib situation was well publicized. We all know about this. Whether we stand one way or another of the actual war in Iraq, I can tell you this, that my background, having lived in the Middle East for 13 years and started high school here, so before high school, my entire life, I was immersed in Middle Eastern culture. There were things that were absolutely astounding to me as I was hearing by supposed experts or contractors who were actually telling the prison guards, the DOD personnel, soften them up for them. And that could mean a lot of things. However, that was interpreted as, and again from all the media accounts, to actually strip these men naked, to bring in dogs, and to expose their genitals before the dogs. The Middle East in general is extremely, it's very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Modest. Modesty is a very big deal. But take an Iraqi who is 20, 30 years old, and you have him be stripped naked in front of a female. I assure you what happened in those days is that it shut them down completely. We got no information out of them because they didn't trust or respect their captors. And then they went back to their villages when Abu Ghraib was shut down. Guess what they were telling their neighbors? Don't ever talk to these guys. If there is an understanding, and I believe it's a wrong understanding, that somehow national security and civil liberties are at odds with each other, I don't believe that is the case. I believe that they complement each other.